Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Soo, your East Oakland advocate. Well, tremendous earthquake over in Taiwan and brings back memories of a big earthquake that happened in Japan that uh, literally destroyed the Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan. And that created a tidal wave which came all the way across the Pacific and hit the California coast. And I went out on that day to see what was going to happen. And in fact, I went out to the dog park. I had my two dogs, Pandora and Mary, and we went out there. And uh, when everything started, it was really interesting because it was watching the water withdraw from the shoreline. I mean, it went way out. And what's interesting about the bay, here's what makes the bay unique. And we have a safety valve, so we won't see the kind of devastation like we typically see when tsunamis hit a coastline. Uh, Santa Cruz, the marine and boat harbor had a lot of damage there from the tidal action, the in and out, and the fast moving water. Uh, so anything that was along the ocean side sustained some damage. But here's the thing about the bay: the water is coming from very deep because right underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, it's 350 to 363 feet of water typically, and it comes up to 60 feet very quickly. I mean, very quickly. Once you get past Alcatraz, the water is typically 60 feet, and that's maintained for the shipping channels, the different directions that ships go. Back in the old days, it used to go south so that it went to Hunter's Point. That was the aircraft carriers, destroyers, and certain submarines. And then we also had Alameda Naval Air Station, deep water channels because they had aircraft carriers there and they had to load planes, unload damaged planes there at the Naval Air Station. So that's just some of the deep water channels here in the San Francisco Bay. The Central Bay is not that deep. I fished it for decades, in about 3 decades worth of fishing, and the average depth of the San Francisco Bay, depending on the tide, is between 25 and 20 feet of water. That's the average depth. And then you start hitting the mud and silt and I mean, the goopy stuff down there. And um, the shipping channels, the deep water shipping channels, are dredged out and maintained by the Army Corps of Engineers so that these deep water ships that come into Oakland, go up to Richmond, go out to the Carquinez, to go up north. They have a lane that they can safely navigate the deep water for high and low tides. And typically, the deep water channel is 50 feet deep. And so the so we come up from 50 feet to 20 feet, 25 feet on average, and then it has to dissipate across 1,100 square miles of bay. 1,100 square miles on an average depth of 20 feet. So that's a lot of water that has to be sucked out, then has to come back in, and then the two sides of the opening for the Golden Gate Bridge, the Marin side and San Francisco side, act as the little strainer, or not strainer, but a restrictor, kind of like in your faucet. If you took your faucet apart, you'll find a little restrictor in there with a little tiny hole, but yet you get a decent amount of water. And it's the same thing. You know, there's water that's going to come into the bay in the event of a tidal wave, just like back in March of 2011 when I was out at the dog park. I watched the water get sucked out, and 5 minutes later, you heard this roaring, and it came from way far away because the water's not that deep there. And my dogs had never seen the mud out there, and they started running around out there, as many dogs did, because it was like, hey, what's this? A whole new play area. And then we start hearing the roaring, and I said, oh, everybody, call your dogs. Water's coming back in. And I started calling my dogs. They started running because they started seeing the water coming back in. And they had just hit the rocks when the water hit them and the rocks. They were about uh, 30 feet, 35 feet away from the breakwater, the rocks that protects the shoreline. And so they literally were running just in front of the water, which was chasing them back to the rocks. As soon as they got the rocks, that's when they got hit with the water. But then it didn't go very high. It just hit the rocks and then stopped. So um, it shocked everybody. Because we wanted to see how high that water was going to climb up the rock wall. And it didn't. It really didn't hit anything because we had a combination of an outgoing tide that time with an incoming tidal wave. So that kind of neutralized some of the energy early on. It dissipated. I mean, it had to dissipate a lot of energy across 1,100 square miles. Once it comes into the bay, it hits the deep water channels, and then the water wells up from those deep water channels and then floods outwards from there. So that's one of the saving graces of the bay, and one of the reasons why I never worried about tidal waves coming here into the bay. On the other side, on the ocean side, yeah, there's going to be some problems, but a tidal wave to clear uh, all of that and then get over the mountains of San Francisco and Marin and going up the coast, not going to happen. We're not going to see any tidal waves like that. Uh, and like I said, the opening for the Golden Gate Bridge acts as a restrictor plate uh, and limits the how fast water can come in. Yes, it can come up, but again, that's deep water in that area, 350 feet. So it can hold a lot of water at kind of like a water jug, and uh, an empty water jug and a fast filling one, and it can fast fill and empty very quickly. And so you won't really notice any elevation difference in the deep water. It's when you come to the lower water, the shallower waters, as you get closer to the park, that's when the issues start. But then you have a lot of area that the water has to dissipate, and that energy dissipates very quickly, and it has to go all the way down to the South Bay, that dissipation. But I attached a video here from the Emeryville that day, that same day. I was at in El Cerrito, Richmond, out at the dog park there. But I'm going to attach the video to that particular event, and it happened in Emeryville, California, on March 11th, 2011. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.